Wheel of Fortune, fate, shadow, and destiny. Life never really moves in straight lines. It spins, twists, and flips, just like the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot. This isn't about luck or superstition, but about a deeper truth. Reality unfolds in cycles. Picture it, Anubis rising on one side, Typhon descending on the other, while the Sphinx guards the top in silence. These figures aren't random. They represent the forces pulling us between instinct and reason, creation and destruction, light and shadow. And the wheel, it doesn't judge. It just turns. Whether you're climbing or falling, the game isn't moral, it's archetypal. We all ride that rim, caught between fate and free will, watching the seasons of our psyche change. But here's the catch. Most people cling to the illusion of control, believing they can outsmart the wheel. They chase highs, avoid lows, and fight change like it's a curse. What they don't realize is that the rise and fall are both necessary parts of transformation. The mythic structure encoded in this symbol reveals how our ego reacts to chaos, either trying to dominate it or run from it. And yet, just like in mythology, hubris leads to downfall. Sooner or later, fortuna humbles the proud. The wise, however, learn to dance with the wheel, not against it. They read the rhythm, not the numbers. Think about someone who keeps changing jobs, partners, or cities, hoping for better luck next time. They're not unlucky, they're spinning unaware. The lesson isn't to escape the cycle, but to meet it with awareness. The key is to become conscious of the pattern you're repeating. And that means recognizing when Typhon, the symbol of chaos, isn't outside of you, but inside. Have you noticed that your bad luck tends to follow a theme? That's no accident. That's the wheel calling you to wake up. What if instead of fearing the fall, you saw it as an invitation? Anubis, after all, isn't just the god of the dead, he's the psychopomp, the guide of souls. When things fall apart, it's often him inviting you inward. When life unravels, it's asking you to let go of ego and return to center. People who meditate, journal, or explore dream work during their low seasons often come out with deeper insight than years of success could have offered. The wheel doesn't punish, it reveals. And the ones who pay attention to its symbolism start seeing synchronicity where others see coincidence. So instead of blaming fate or worshiping luck, what if we embrace the paradox? The wheel spins, but you're not a passive passenger. You're a co-creator with a map etched in myth and shadow. There's a reason why the wheel appears in so many spiritual systems, from the Tibetan wheel of life to the turning of astrological ages. Each rotation is both an end and a beginning. But to see that clearly, you'll have to face what stands between you and the center. And sometimes that thing looks a lot like a riddle with claws. Symbolism of the Sphinx and the Shadow Mother. There's a reason the Sphinx never gives straight answers. She asks questions that shake the core, riddles that twist your mind, not to confuse but to confront. This ancient creature, perched atop the wheel, isn't just a mythological guardian. She's the embodiment of paradox. With the body of a lion and the face of a woman, she represents a fusion of instinct and intellect, force and wisdom, yin and yang. But look deeper, and she starts to resemble something more unsettling, the shadow of the divine feminine. Not the nurturing great mother, but her dark twin, the devouring one. And unless the hero confronts her, he'll stay trapped in unconscious patterns. In Jungian terms, she's the rejected empress. What happens when the nurturing mother becomes controlling, chaotic, or absent? That energy doesn't vanish. It hides in the psyche as the shadow mother, the part that sabotages intimacy, nurtures fear, and whispers shame. And like in myth, she shows up with riddles, often when you're trying to move forward. Who are you really? Why do you repeat this pain? What are you avoiding? These aren't casual questions, they're psychic thresholds. Until you face her, you can't ascend. And here's the twist. Defeating her doesn't mean slaying her, but understanding her. A real-world example? That moment when someone feels overwhelmed by a toxic relationship, but can't seem to leave. They tell themselves it's love, or fate, or karma, but underneath it all lies a deeper imprint, an unconscious bond with the shadow mother archetype. This doesn't just play out in romance. It appears in overworking, people-pleasing, even perfectionism. The solution isn't logic. It's symbolic sight, learning to recognize the Sphinx when she appears in your choices, in your self-sabotage, in your dreams. She doesn't need to be feared. She needs to be understood. One of the best ways to meet her is through active imagination. Jung called it a dialogue with the unconscious, and it's as strange as it is effective. Sit down, breathe, and visualize the Sphinx. Ask her what she wants from you. Let the answers come, no matter how weird they seem. Alternatively, pull a tarot card and ask what part of your inner feminine remains unresolved. Even a story, like reading a myth or writing your own, can activate this dialogue. She lives in symbol, not logic. The trick is to stop arguing and start listening. Once you hear her, really hear her, you'll realize her riddles were never meant to harm, they were meant to awaken. The shadow mother doesn't block the path, she is the path. Her monstrous form guards the treasure, like every myth worth retelling. And the moment you stop resisting her and start decoding her message, the wheel begins to turn again, this time inward. But beware, the next riddle won't come from her mouth. It'll echo through an ancient prophecy you thought you already understood. The myth of Oedipus and symbolic destiny. Everyone knows the tragedy of Oedipus, how he tried to outrun his fate, only to run straight into it. But most people miss the deeper point. His downfall wasn't just bad luck or divine cruelty. It was a case study in unconscious blindness. Oedipus didn't fall because the prophecy was inevitable. He fell because he never turned inward. Instead of asking what the riddle meant, he tried to solve it with logic alone. He confronted the Sphinx, but not the shadow. That's the trap of living only on the rim of the wheel of fortune, always reacting to life's symptoms, never addressing the soul's call to awaken. Symbolic destiny isn't about events, it's about patterns. Oedipus thought he could avoid the future by changing the outer circumstances. But fate in myth isn't linear, it's archetypal. It loops until it teaches. His tragedy mirrors anyone who keeps making different choices, but ends up with the same result. You leave one job for another, or one partner for another, but you don't change the inner script. Why? Because the root of the pattern is buried in the unconscious. The myth warns us, escaping prophecy doesn't happen through strategy. It happens through self-awareness. Jung would say Oedipus suffered from a split between ego and unconscious material. He projected meaning outward, refused the shadow, and denied the wisdom in the wound. How many of us do the same? We treat inner issues like outer threats. We blame fate, partners, parents, politics, but we rarely look at our inner landscape. The prophecy in your life might not come from Delphi, but it echoes in dreams, habits, synchronicities. If you keep hearing the same riddle in different costumes, you're likely living your myth without realizing it. And the wheel, it just keeps turning until you notice. Let's ground this with a real-life case. Imagine someone who fears abandonment but keeps ending up with emotionally unavailable partners. No matter how many choices they make, the pattern repeats. That's symbolic destiny. The outer loop reflects an unresolved inner split, often with the parent complex, the anima or animus, or the rejected self. What heals it isn't just therapy or affirmations, but symbolic insight. Reading myths like Oedipus Rex, journaling dream symbols, or pulling a tarot card like the Hanged Man can flip the script. It's not about changing your fate, it's about decoding it. And once you start decoding, you realize something profound. Fate and free will aren't enemies, they're collaborators. Destiny provides the map, choice determines the path. But that map is written in mythic language, and only those who turn inward can read it. So the real question isn't, how do I avoid my fate? It's, what pattern is trying to awaken me? Because once you ask that, you'll realize the next twist in the wheel isn't outside. It's spiraling inward, towards something far more personal, the architecture of your own mind. Introversion and extroversion through the wheel model. Imagine the Wheel of Fortune as more than just a symbol of fate. It's a living diagram of human personality. Jung saw the psyche not as a straight line, but as a circular dance between the center and the rim. The introvert walks close to the center, drawn to the quiet gravity of inner reflection. The extrovert, by contrast, surfs the rim, energized by movement, interaction, and novelty. Neither is better or worse. They just play different roles in the cycle of transformation. But here's the trick: growth requires both. No one evolves by staying in one spot. Whether you're an introvert avoiding exposure or an extrovert escaping stillness, the journey calls for a turn of the wheel. Think of it like this. Introverts often carry the gift of symbolic insight. They're drawn to dreams, mythology, tarot, deep reading. They gravitate toward meaning at the expense of motion. But they can also fall into spiritual bypassing or become lost in the labyrinth of the unconscious, mistaking withdrawal for wisdom. On the other hand, extroverts embody the energy of the hero on the quest. They act, risk, build, love. But without introspection, they get stuck chasing shadows in the world, projecting their psyche onto jobs, lovers, or causes. The rim spins faster, but without the center, they burn out. A practical way to integrate both. Let's say you're highly extroverted. Carve out 30 minutes a day to journal your emotional patterns. Nothing fancy, just a raw download of the day's events. Then pull a tarot card and ask, what am I not seeing? For introverts, the opposite medicine helps. Take one bold action a day that stretches your comfort zone. Join a group, pitch your idea, or share your insights publicly. The point isn't to change who you are, it's to complete the circle. Because true individuation doesn't mean picking a side. It means moving between them with grace. The wheel model also explains why transformation feels so disorienting. When you're pulled from the rim toward the center, or vice versa, you feel like you're losing yourself. That's normal. The psyche isn't linear. It expands and contracts like breath. Jung's mandala wasn't just art, it was a map of integration. And if you pay attention, your life keeps drawing one for you. Every burnout, breakthrough, or identity crisis is the wheel asking you to balance the inner and the outer, the stillness and the storm. It's never random, it's rhythmic. And just when you think you've figured it out, life throws a curveball. The wheel shifts. The center shakes. Suddenly, what worked doesn't work anymore. That's not regression, it's invitation. The unconscious isn't done with you yet. There's still another figure waiting on the edge of your inner landscape, one who speaks in symbols, dreams, and riddles. Techniques for engaging the unconscious and the Sphinx. The Sphinx isn't just a monster, she's a teacher. But to learn from her, you must be willing to engage the unconscious. That's not as easy as it sounds. Most of us are conditioned to avoid what feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar. But here's the catch. The more we avoid, the more the unconscious forces its hand through dreams, symbols, or patterns. The good news? There are tools to help you speak the language of the Sphinx, tools that turn the unconscious from a chaotic force into a guide for transformation. One powerful method is active imagination. a technique developed by Carl Jung. It's simple. Close your eyes, get comfortable, and let your imagination roam. Ask the Sphinx a question, then wait. Don't control the answer. Let it come in the form of an image, a feeling, or a phrase. You might not get a clear answer at first, but over time, these visions will build a bridge to the unconscious. Just like a tarot reading, the meaning isn't immediate, but once you reflect on it, the message becomes clearer. Jung often emphasized how such dialogues with the inner world can lead to profound insights and healings. Another method is dream analysis. Your dreams speak in the tongue of symbols. If you've ever woken up from a vivid dream only to forget the details by breakfast, you've missed an opportunity. Keep a dream journal next to your bed. Write down whatever you remember, no matter how small or strange. Over time, you'll notice patterns. And that's where the magic is. Dreams are the Sphinx's riddles, and when you learn to interpret them, you start hearing what your psyche is trying to communicate. Maybe you've been avoiding an aspect of yourself, or there's an old wound that needs attention. The Sphinx is here to guide you, but you have to listen. Tarot, too, is an ancient tool for engaging the unconscious. Pulling a card isn't just about fortune-telling. It's about unlocking the symbolic meaning hidden beneath the surface. Each card is a mirror, reflecting the inner landscape. When you pull a card, ask yourself, what does this card say about where I am in my life? What part of myself is calling for attention? The cards won't give you a yes or no answer, but they will offer a reflection of your current state of mind and soul. Over time, as you build a relationship with the cards, they will become a powerful guide to navigate your inner labyrinth. Storytelling is another practice that connects the conscious and unconscious mind. When you tell your own story, you begin to see the narrative arc of your life. What are the themes that keep showing up? What role do you play in your personal myth? Are you the hero, the victim, or the villain? The Sphinx is all about riddles, and your life story is one big riddle to be solved. Write your story down, explore its deeper meanings, and ask, what is my soul's calling? By understanding the archetypes at play in your life, you can shift your narrative and create a new, empowered path forward. And finally, synchronicity. Have you ever had a moment where everything seemed to align perfectly, like the universe was sending you a message? That's the Sphinx speaking. She's the force behind those moments of perfect timing, those little nudges that send you in a new direction. Pay attention to the seemingly random events that occur in your life. There's more going on beneath the surface than you might realize. The more you engage the unconscious, the more these moments of synchronicity will show up, guiding you toward transformation. The wheel is symbol of cyclical and spiral time. Modern life runs on straight lines. Calendars, clocks, deadlines, they all reinforce the illusion that time moves forward like a train on a track. But the Wheel of Fortune tells a different story. It speaks in circles, in cycles, in seasons. You don't just move through time, you spiral through it. The same themes return, not because you're stuck, but because you're being invited deeper. Each rotation of the wheel is a chance to revisit old material with new awareness, to see how far you've come, or how far you've drifted. Fate doesn't repeat itself to punish you. It loops to teach you. This is why people experience déjà vu in life events. Another breakup that feels eerily similar, another job that drains your soul, another conflict that mirrors your childhood wounds. These aren't coincidences. They're invitations to grow. When you start recognizing the symbolic timing of events, you stop seeing life as a series of failures and start reading it like a tarot spread. Each position has meaning. Each turn holds a lesson. The past isn't just behind you, it's embedded in the now. The spiral deepens, and you're not going in circles, you're evolving in rhythm. There's an old saying, You can never step into the same river twice. The same is true with archetypal time. Sure, you might return to similar situations, but you're never quite the same person. The unconscious brings forward unresolved content in cycles, like lunar phases or planetary returns. It's why many people experience major shifts around the ages of 28, 42, and 56, points where inner and outer wheels align. Understanding this changes everything. You stop asking, "Why is this happening again?" and start asking, "What have I not yet integrated from this pattern?" One practical way to explore this is by tracking your own life cycles. Choose an area, relationships, career, self-worth, and map out key events from the last 10 years. Look for recurring themes, timing, emotions. Then pull a tarot card or two for each phase and ask, what was the soul lesson here? You'll be amazed at how clearly the symbolic story emerges. This practice isn't about control, it's about recognition. When you recognize the spiral, you move with grace instead of resistance. And resistance, as you've probably felt, only makes the wheel spin harder. And just when you think you've reached the bottom of a cycle, when everything feels lost or meaningless, something unexpected happens. The spiral shifts again. A symbol reappears. A synchronicity calls your name. And suddenly, you realize this isn't just about your personal life. It's about a much bigger mandala, one that stretches far beyond your own birth and death. Philosophical implications of archetypal time. Let's talk about time, not as a clock, but as a mandala. Most people live under the tyranny of linear time, chasing the next goal, fearing the next loss. But in myth and mysticism, time isn't linear, it breathes. The Wheel of Fortune isn't just a metaphor for ups and downs. It's a gateway into archetypal time, where every moment holds both past and future within it. In Eastern systems like the I Ching or the Tibetan Wheel of Life, time is cyclical, sacred, paradoxical. Birth and death are not opposites, they're partners. Shadow and light don't cancel each other, they dance. And at the center of it all is stillness. This is the paradox most people miss. Movement exists, but so does silence. Action matters, but so does contemplation. The wheel turns, yes, but something in you remains still. That's the center Jung spoke of. It's the self, the mandala at the core of consciousness. The circumference spins with fate, karma, synchronicity. But the center knows no time. It's the eternal now, the eye of the storm. When you operate from this space, life stops being a series of events and starts becoming a symbolic unfolding. Each moment, whether joyful or painful, becomes a teacher. Archetypal time also means that your personal struggles are never just personal. They echo larger myths, collective dreams, ancestral wounds. You're not just healing your heartbreak, you're walking the path of psyche. You're not just facing failure, you're enacting the fall of Icarus or the dark night of the soul. When you live symbolically, the mundane becomes mythic. The breakup becomes a rite of passage. The layoff becomes a call to initiation. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of time and start seeing yourself as part of a much older, wiser design. Practical tip: try meditating with a mandala, not just looking at it, but letting your awareness sink into its structure. Feel the movement and stillness coexisting. Or journal about a recurring life pattern, then explore it through myth. Ask, which archetypal story am I reliving? Is it Inanna descending into the underworld? Or the wanderings of Odysseus? You'll find that your pain often has a mythic structure. And when you locate it within that symbolic web, healing accelerates. You're no longer just processing your story, you're reclaiming your place in the great wheel of meaning. And as your awareness shifts from clock time to archetypal time, something strange begins to happen. You start noticing symbols everywhere. Numbers, dreams, animals, random phrases, they all start speaking. Not in logic, but in resonance. It's not that the world becomes magical. It's that you finally see that it always was. And just when this deeper rhythm starts to make sense, you realize you're not alone in this journey. The entire species is spiraling through its own great myth, one turn at a time. Cultural reflections and the spiritual evolution of humanity. There's a photograph, Earth, seen from the moon, a pale blue dot floating in blackness. When it was first released, people wept, not because it was beautiful, though it was, but because it changed something fundamental, perspective. That image became a modern mandala, a symbolic mirror reminding us that we're all on the same spinning wheel. In that moment, the illusion of separation cracked. Nations, religions, egos, they all looked a little smaller. And in that cosmic mirror, humanity glimpsed the sacred, what the ancients always knew but modernity often forgets. This awakening isn't just poetic, it's archetypal. Humanity is moving through its own collective wheel of fortune. We're not just evolving technologically, we're being pushed into spiritual evolution. The myths are changing form. Superheroes, space operas, even AI dreams, they're all reflections of ancient archetypes wearing new clothes. Typhon becomes the corrupt system. Anubis appears as the guide through digital death. Fortuna whispers through synchronicities on your phone. Myth never died, it just migrated into our media. And when we pay attention, we realize these stories aren't fiction, they're instructions. Jung predicted this. He saw that as the West lost its mythic grounding, the psyche would compensate by projecting myth onto politics, science, and culture. Look around. Conspiracy theories, utopian visions, and collective fears, they're not just social trends. They're expressions of a psychic hunger. Humanity is longing for symbolic meaning, for initiation, for a sense of place in a cosmos that feels increasingly random. And the wheel, it's spinning faster. But speed doesn't equal progress. Evolution requires integration, not escape velocity. So how do we participate in this shift without losing our center? Start by treating culture as a dream. Just like you'd analyze your personal dreams, look at the world symbolically. What does the rise of virtual reality say about our desire to transcend? What does our obsession with apocalypses say about our inner fear of ego death? What does the climate crisis reflect about our split from the divine feminine and the instinctual earth? These aren't just global problems, they're symbolic mirrors of our collective unconscious. And when we start seeing them that way, the solutions shift from mechanical to mythic. And perhaps most importantly, we remember we're not outside the story, we're inside it. We're not just watching the wheel spin, we're moving with it. That photo of Earth wasn't just a scientific achievement. It was a rite of passage, a moment when humanity caught its own reflection and saw the mandala in the sky. But what comes after that reflection? What happens after the mirror cracks and the soul realizes it's part of a larger myth? Well, that's where the number 10 starts to matter. The number 10 and the turning point of the hero. The number 10 isn't just a number, it's a threshold. In the tarot, it marks the completion of a cycle and the beginning of something entirely new. On the Wheel of Fortune card, that 10 sits like a cosmic bookmark, signaling the moment when the hero must stop chasing outcomes and start seeking inner meaning. Up to this point, life might have felt like a game of survival, gain, loss, repeat. But 10 whispers a different truth. The game isn't just about climbing the wheel. It's about realizing the wheel itself is symbolic. It's not your enemy. It's your teacher. This is the moment when the ego starts to crack, not in defeat, but in surrender. Not giving up, but giving in. The hero begins to sense there's more going on than just career goals, failed relationships, or spiritual checklists. There's an archetypal current underneath it all, one that's been nudging, challenging, even tricking them towards something bigger than personal success. The figure at this point realizes they're not the main character in a self-made movie. They're a participant in a cosmic story, one that began before they were born and will continue long after they're gone. In Jungian psychology, this is the turning point toward individuation. The hero starts to recognize patterns not just in the world, but in their own psyche. Shadow work deepens. Archetypes begin to move from projection to integration. That rage? It's Typhon asking to be seen. That strange pull toward silence? It's the Sphinx inviting stillness. That heartbreak? It's the divine feminine breaking down the walls of control. The number 10 is the signal that the outer quest is collapsing into the inner one. You're not here to win the game. You're here to understand it. If you want to embody this shift, start by mapping your own life in cycles of 10. Every decade, what changed? What repeated? What deepened? Look at where your illusions crumbled, where new symbols emerged. Pair this with a tarot spread focused on completions, the world, death, the wheel, the hermit. These cards don't just offer insight, they reveal the architecture of transformation. You're not meant to stay the same. The moment you reach 10, you begin again, not in ignorance, but in awareness. Not as a seeker, but as a witness. And just as the hero accepts their journey isn't about control, a new question arises, not about success or failure, but about meaning, about presence, about inner stillness. The wheel keeps turning, but now, the hero isn't spinning helplessly. They're standing in the center, listening. And in that stillness, something ancient begins to whisper, not a command, but an invitation. And it sounds like meditation. Meditation as access to symbolic wisdom. The wheel never stops turning, but you can. That's the paradox meditation invites you to explore. In a world spinning with distractions, anxieties, and compulsive loops of thought, stillness becomes an act of rebellion and revelation. Meditation isn't about escaping the wheel. It's about stepping into the center, where you can observe the motion without being flung by it. The moment you close your eyes and listen to your breath, you begin to unhook from the drama of ego and enter the sacred space of symbolic insight. Suddenly riddles soften, chaos quiets, and meaning begins to rise. This isn't just poetic, it's neurological. The default mode network, responsible for self-referential thinking, actually slows down during meditation. That means the I that obsesses over control and outcome begins to loosen its grip. And in that space, the psyche opens. Dreams resurface. Archetypes speak. The Sphinx might not appear in front of you, but her riddles shift into intuitions, flashes of clarity, or unexpected peace. People who meditate regularly often report increased synchronicity, symbolic dreams, and even spontaneous insights that feel channeled. Why? Because stillness tunes the psyche to symbolic frequencies. Want to apply this in real life? Try meditating with a single tarot card. Choose the wheel, of course. Light a candle, breathe deeply, and hold the image in your awareness. Don't think, just observe. What sensations emerge? What memories bubble up? Let the card speak through silence. Or go further, write the wheel's riddle in your journal. What am I resisting? Sit with it for 10 minutes a day, letting answers surface without force. These small rituals build a bridge between conscious and unconscious. They allow sacred meaning to arise where logic usually dominates. Meditation also helps reframe life's failures as messages. Instead of spiraling in self-blame, you begin asking symbolic questions. Why did this happen? Becomes what archetype is at play. The lost job becomes a tower moment. The unexpected help becomes the star. You begin to see your life not as a random series of events, but as a mandala unfolding in time. Meditation doesn't remove pain, it translates it. It doesn't fix the wheel, it reveals the design. And that awareness shifts everything. You start walking through chaos like it's sacred ground. And as the noise fades, one final realization begins to take shape. The riddles were never meant to trap you, they were meant to wake you up. The wheel wasn't your enemy, it was your teacher. And now, standing in its center, the path forward becomes clear. It doesn't begin with knowing more. It begins with listening deeper. Because wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you're still enough, you'll hear the next turn before it begins.